a crazy little period when I had worked a friend at Herndon High School, the assistant vice president, not vice president, vice principal, had steered me through her family friends to a weird little restaurant in Phoenix, or Scottsdale actually, that I was looking for a job, someplace to get going, and it was called the Impeccable Pig. Does that tell you we're starting here? And it was actually a store, a furniture shop, an antique store that had like a food counter, and in Scottsdale she had an incredible clientele. I mean, people who came to lunch and spent $50, that kind of stuff, and in those days, and I felt like I was this new culinary graduate, and I knew what to do, and looked at this place, and they had no idea what they were doing. It was like wing it every day.
Wow.
There was no plan. There was no menu. There was no order. And the person who led all this was, I want to say her name was, it might have even been Kogi, like the truck. There's this woman who was a very good cook. I mean, she made delicious things, but to follow her as an employee, impossible. You had no idea where she was going. They brought me in because they wanted some order. The people who owned the place, they'd like to know what's happening, and it just turned into this big conflict because I couldn't grasp it, and 3 months or something of that, and then finally Phoenix was where I said, okay, I'm going to interview my way back to DC. So I did at what was then the big Western. There was the Arizona Biltmore, and they said, we think you should. We'd like to offer you a position in our fine dining room as a waiter. I forget what the name. It was really fancy French sort of. They had more of a work your way up apprentice style thing, which I respected. But I didn't want to do waiting. I wanted to cook.
Yeah.
So next stop was Atlanta, the Peachtree Plaza, which was also a Westin then. And they offered me something. I forget what it was. And then I ended up back at the Hyatt Regency Washington on Capitol Hill, basically in the area where I started for all this. And they said, we'll take you on as a management trainee, which was much more appealing. So I ended up doing that to get started.
Not in the kitchen at all?
No. That was where I
switched. Yeah.
And then at the Hyatt in DC is where you got a chance to switch over to marketing, totally out of the kitchen after you did kitchen.
The transition to, I worked in the busiest coffee shop in Hyatt at that time as an assistant manager, just to get in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of where I spotted the fact that there were non-kitchen. Well, there were people. There was a sales department. I had no idea that there was sales. I spotted them coming into my restaurant with their customers, and I was bussing their tables and all that stuff. And I'm kind of like, I was getting really unhappy with the lifestyle. And it was a long restaurant like this, and at this end was the sort of the lounge and where all the TVs were and all that. And they kept assigning me to Sunday brunch, which made it almost impossible for me to watch the Redskins game. So I would gravitate down to that end and always get nailed for spending too much time down there. And then that's when the two went together. It's kind of like, I want to have a life.
Right.
And
this is where the action's all down here at the lounge.
Yeah.
There's somebody who helped, or like late night, somebody came back from an NCAA tournament game or something, and you made them dinner and
He's very
pressed the hell
smart.
out of
He has a
them.
good memory,
He does have a good memory.
Yeah. The Atlantic Coast Conference basketball tournament was in the Capitol Center one year, and there was sort of a story there where tell the rest of the story here.
Me? All I remember is that they were so impressed that you were able to like reopen the kitchen and make them something to eat late at night that.
And it got me a commendation letter and all that stuff.
Yeah. But you were, and the staff meeting where they were going to recognize you, you were late or something. I remember something about that. Like,
Okay.
you were supposed to be there, and they were going to say, "Oh, this great letter that we got about Curt," and you weren't even there yet.
Oh, okay. I don't remember
But
that.
that somehow, because they were like friends with the Pritzkers or something. It was like the head of
That could be. Yeah.
head of like CVS or something. I forget who it was. Some executive that you helped.
Leggett. What was Leggett? No, it was a cigarette company,
Oh, okay.
which would have a lot of pull with a hotel company. But what I really remember from that job was telling the Ronald Reagan's inauguration was held while I worked in that restaurant, and which of course brought every big group of Republicans you can imagine from, and you know they assign delegations to different hotels, and we had Texas and Georgia and all these right-wing southern states.
Yeah.
And there was one time when, so that coffee shop got incredibly busy. They would go to the inauguration, they would go to the parties, and then they would come back for a nightcap. And of course, everybody's a genius VIP in their own minds at one of these things. And somebody came that really aggravated me. I had the perfect opportunity to take it out on him. I can't think of who it was. It was, damn. It was one of those
Pundit types.
He was a political person.
Yeah, but it was a really big one, and it was just so gorgeous. I can't think of who. I guess it'll come to me, but it was the chance to say, you know, no, I can't put you at the front of the line. You know, who would you like me to replace? You know, and really just sort of say to the guy, you're not nearly as important as you think you are. Everybody's important. And that was, if I could just remember the guy's name. What?
You got away with it?
Oh, yeah.
No complaints about it?
No, he backed off, which was what made it so delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, that if you're running the restaurant, you have to take care of the other people in line too.
There's only so many seats.
Is it a young guy?
No, it was a big-time television, everybody would recognize his face kind of guy. He's probably still around. I just can't think of who he is.
Television. Was he an outwardly Republican or just a regular?
Oh, outwardly right-wing.
Okay.
Political commentator.
Yeah.
In the 80s during Reagan. And he was already television, or was he?
Oh, yeah, he was already
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Not Sapphire.
George Will.
Yeah, Will. That's close.
You know, you're in the right zone, but I can't think of. I
Yeah.
just can't take it any farther.
Doesn't it look raw inside? Blah.
What is it?
It's a
It's
prep.
Great with 2 eggs and some ham.
Ham strips
Ham strips. It's like,
and uncooked inside. No, so. No go.